Hello and welcome back to Region Weather Live. We're giving you an update on this little system that's moving through our region here Thursday night, and then also giving you an update on the bigger storm system that is expected to run through our region Sunday and lingering into Monday and perhaps even Tuesday as well. And so now this evening, right around 9:30, 10 o'clock, we've got this snow moving across the northeastern parts of South Dakota and then on through the Minneapolis and Rochester area. We do have a couple of areas of moderate snow here. One just kind of south of Aberdeen here as it picks up kind of in Redfield, Watertown area, picking up a fair amount of snow. As of 9:30 this evening, already receiving a report of 4 inches around the Aberdeen area. And then as we head a little bit further east around that Brooklyn Park, Elk River, kind of coming up to St. Cloud, a little bit heavier band, now moving across to I-94 at this point. Of course, all this expected to continue to basically push to the east through the overnight hours. And so within this region, we're still looking at that 2 to 5 range roughly in through there. Maybe just a little bit further south, perhaps cutting off some of this northern stuff, as it looks like the heavier band, or at least the moderate band, is basically setting up right in there and through there. So you might get an area of 2 to 5. We'll call it maybe closer 3 to 5 inches within that narrow band. And then within probably the broader band, we'll call that more to 2 to 4. And then in this lighter purple bluish area, the rest of this area probably only looking at a trace to maybe 2 inches tops. You can see as you get further north into the northeastern part of North Dakota, in the northern quarter or so of Minnesota, not really expecting anything out of this first system. And the other thing to watch is going to be this little band that's going to set up mainly into Iowa, but some of this could bleed just a little bit further north and make it just perhaps into Fairmont and riding rather right along that I-90 corridor in the far southern parts of Minnesota. So it'll be close that maybe perhaps some heavier bands could make it that far north and bleed into Minnesota. But for the most part, it's still looking like anything that does develop, looks like still most of it will stay into Iowa. And now next, we're going to take a look at that larger storm that's running through Sunday. Well, we'll call it Saturday night, Sunday, and into Monday and possibly Tuesday as well. We're going to give you just kind of a timing right now, a real early look at kind of what to expect as far as timing goes, and then also a very preliminary look at how much snowfall is expected. Again, very early look at this still. This model or this storm system is still making its way on shore, so we're still kind of ahead of the game here, but just to kind of give you an early idea of what to expect. So already Saturday night around midnight, we're looking at the precipitation increasing and moving into southwestern parts of South Dakota. Some of it's going to be kind of snow, maybe some freezing rain or sleet, and then eventually transitioning over to rain as this this band rather, moves to the northeast. A bit of a skip in the model forecast. But you notice this band moves to the northeast and then fills in a little bit further north. Now, this is around 9 a.m. on Sunday, and you can see by this point, we're getting some decent bands across southern parts of North Dakota. And with all this moisture being dragged up north and getting wrapped into this system, you can see the transition from rain to freezing rain and sleet to snow. And so early on, you can see already how this area in particular really is going to be the focal point, just because we do, like I said, we've got all this moisture just getting sucked up into this and then running into that cold air. So man, some of you areas across eastern parts of South Dakota and southern Minnesota are really going to get nailed just because of the amount of humidity and moisture being drawn up into this. So as we continue to put this into motion, this is noon and 3 p.m. and then finally by 6 p.m. on Sunday evening, boy, again, just more snow continues to fall across southern parts of Minnesota, eastern parts of South Dakota, and then it's going to be tricky where exactly this changeover occurs and how quickly it moves north. Eventually, you guys down into southeastern parts of South Dakota, you're going to turn over to rain eventually, as you see on the model, just because this warm air will continue to rise to the north and then continue to slam into this cold air. And where that happens, plentiful amounts of snow are going to happen, but eventually it's going to turn over rain. And that's going to continue to linger. Here we are at 9 p.m. and midnight. Things cool down just a little bit, but again, lots of moisture being drawn in. We got some moderate to heavy bands in where that moisture runs into that colder air. And then this is 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. on Monday. Again, continues just drawing in all kinds of moisture and wrapping that around and slamming it into that cold air. Continue to have moderate to heavy snowfall. So that was the European model. I'm going to switch over to the American model just to show how actually eerily similar they are at this same time frame. 6 a.m. on Monday, and kind of in that same area, looking at some really good moderate to heavy snowfalls across southeastern parts of South Dakota and into southern parts of Minnesota. So right now the models are sort of agreeing on this area or location for picking up a fair amount of snow. And so we continue this into Monday morning at 9 a.m. and noon. Now we get some of that warmer air start to make its way into southeastern parts of Minnesota. We continue to have some pretty good snowfalls within this region. The light snow continues to linger back across central parts of South Dakota and across northern parts of Minnesota. And for comparison's sake, we'll flip back to the European model, and kind of in that same area, we're looking at continued a decent moderate to heavy snowfall. We've got that rain now beginning to move into the Twin Cities area, maybe a little bit heavier or moderate snowfalls making its way into southeastern parts of North Dakota, northern Minnesota, and then that back edge of the snow kind of in the same location as the GFS American model. Now later in the day on Monday, as we get to Monday evening around 6 a.m., some decent rain now moving into the Twin Cities area, perhaps even some rumbles of thunder as well. Some rain, freezing rain, that transition line somewhere just north of St. Cloud, moving up to the Duluth area. And then once again, we've got that moderate to perhaps even some heavier snowfalls at this point across central and northeastern parts of Minnesota. And that snow continues to linger into midnight Monday night. This is Monday night, early Tuesday morning. Perhaps some of this drying up just a bit as we get a bit of drier air working in there, but nevertheless some warmer air pushing in. And then that moderate snowfall now moving across north central parts of Minnesota. Now, by comparison, moving this back to the American model, doesn't quite move that warmer, drier air quite as far north. You see the heavier snowfalls just a little bit further south, but still fairly similar compared to the European. Finally, once we get to about Tuesday morning at 6 a.m., continued snow across a good portion of Minnesota. Not quite as much heavy stuff, maybe a little bit lingering here and there. And by comparison, the European model, again, a little more aggressive on the warm air. I think it's probably a little too aggressive. We'll see how it turns out. But nevertheless, we got a little bit of snow left over kind of across central parts of Minnesota by Tuesday morning. And then really once we get to Tuesday afternoon, most of the snowfall is now moving off to the northeast. Guys, this is where this big storm system is right now. I mean, it's way off the coast. But I'm going to show you just a real early preliminary look as to where we're looking at for the heavier snowfalls and just give you a real early idea of how much snow is expected. So take this all with a huge grain of salt at this point. So if you remember my earlier forecast of where I said the bullseye is going to be when it comes to the heavier snow, keep an eye basically on this region in through here. And you'll notice quickly that that bullseye has slipped further to the south, particularly across eastern South Dakota and southern parts of Minnesota. You notice a little bit further back to the west, that area is still kind of intact, unfortunately for you out there, where we're looking at maybe 6 to 12 inches, perhaps even more in some isolated areas. But I think I feel a little more comfortable for this 6 to 12 inch mark here, and I feel a little more comfortable about the plus portion portion when it comes to the amount of snow as we get a little bit further to the east. But like I said, you notice how this bullseye area has slipped to the south, and then we'll also adding this region in through here. And as I said, that's because we've got that moisture kind of running up against the cold air, and then it's kind of encirculating back behind it. And that's kind of where this other area, or that little appendage, takes place. Now further to the north, we've got kind of a 4 to 7 mark in through these regions right here. 2 to 5 reaching up to the Duluth, Ely area, perhaps Fargo, Minot as well. And then we're looking at a trace to 2 inches basically for the remainder of the region. Now that is just through Sunday essentially. Now remember how that storm system begins to lift off to the north and east and drawing in some of that warmer air, but also bringing some of that snowfall further to the north on Monday. And so with all that moisture in place and with some of that snow moving further to the north through the day on Monday, this is kind of a big bullseye. We're going to narrow that down as we get closer to Monday, but kind of an area that has the potential at least of seeing another 6 to maybe 12 inches or more in some isolated areas throughout this region. So a good amount of snowfall could occur in some of these locations, particularly across eastern South Dakota and west central parts of Minnesota. And then we also have these areas in yellow where we're looking at least the potential for seeing some accumulating snow, some plowable type snow, just some areas that could have their own types of problems and reduced visibilities and problematic road conditions as we go through the day on Monday. So again, the timing, the amounts, the locations of snowfall, all this could still move obviously very much by the time we get to Sunday and Monday. I mean, you look at where I had the bullseye before and that area slid south, it's possible that area could move north. Some of these areas are going to reduce or increase. This is still very much in flux when it comes to the timing and location of everything. But this is just to help you out a little bit as we get into the weekend, just to plan if you have any traveling or if you have anything going on for the weekend and going into Monday and Tuesday as well, just to give you a heads up on what potentially is coming, because this does have the potential for being a big snowmaker, and we want to make sure you are informed. Like I said, a lot of this will be adjusted as we go through time and we get closer to Sunday, so stay informed. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell button that updates or that shows up beside it. That way you'll know when I've uploaded another video just like this, and we'll keep you updated as we get closer to that time frame. Also, make sure you take a look at my social media channels on Facebook and Instagram and X, as I will have the graphics on there as well that you've seen tonight, as well as any other updated graphics as we get closer to Sunday as well. All right, everybody. Also, make sure you keep commenting. Man, it's been great to see all the comments. It seems to be helping out my channel a lot. So just discuss, talk on there, ask me questions, ask other people questions, whatever you want to do. But it seems to be helping out the channel, so I appreciate that a lot. And thanks for all the wonderful, kind words that are going along with it. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Warner, and everybody have a good day.